remember we've talked about the Hebrew letters correspond, the Hebrew alphabet corresponds to these chapters, the structure. And the 20th letter points to this sign called Canis Major. There's also a Canis Minor. But Canis Major, which is this dog. And the word, the Hebrew letter is pronounced Resh. But it's like a R sound in our English. You can see there the yellow here. This is the primary description. Remember, the chapter speaks about, of Revelation chapter 20, speaks about the people who are raised and put on a throne, and they're going to judge in the kingdom, right? Well, look what it says here. In Egypt, this the very sign, Canis, was Anubis, and he stood along the side, the scales, within the halls of judgment, and carefully weighed the lives of those who were presented before him. Wow. That really fits, because we just got through saying, well, who's going to judge all these people coming into the millennial kingdom? We saw the thrones, right? They're sitting on the thrones, but there's a whole lot of people everyone that's going to come into the millennial kingdom has to be judged, except for the ones that were raised from the dead. Well, let's read this. The star Wesson, and you can see it circled there. You see it circled over by the dog as well. Both circles, they correspond to the same thing here. Star Wesson in the sign of Canis Major represents the Messiah's virgins. The star Adhara in the right hind leg means the glorious virgins, and another star located within the body of Canis Major declares him to be Wesson, a name meaning the bright and shining one. The name is derived from the Arabic al-Wazn, which means the weight. The weight as in an idea of balance. When you have a balance, they used to put a weight on one side, and then they would, like if it was a bushel basket, they would have your weight here, and then when it balanced, they would have the exact measurement on the other side here. Well, in the same way, the idea of judgment, you're going to be weighed in the scales, right? And so, and that's what judgment is. That's what. So all these people that in the millennium that are sitting on these thrones, they're going to be involved in judgment. Throughout the whole 1,000 years, by the way, it has been decreed by the god Dionysus, of course this is Greek mythology here, that the virgins of Athens had to be identified in death with suffering of the virgin Aragone, who had discovered that her innocent father Icarius had been murdered. Her suffering led to her own death, being herself hung upon a tree. Who else was hung upon a tree? Jesus, right? So you can see the kind of a comparison here. The decree was that her virgins must also suffer a similar fate as Aragon herself is said to have suffered. The third star in Aludra, which means the virgins, Aragon is said to be represented by the constellation Virgo, and her father is Boots. And I don't know if you can remember back, I know we're not all stars in mythology, but do you remember what we said Virgo represented?
Virgin.
The virgin who shall conceive, bear a son. Who will the son be? Jesus, right? And you can see here, This is Virgo. That's what he's talking about. So that ties in with that. And Boots was her son. And you can see between her son, Boots, who's a savior, and Virgo, who's the virgin who was impregnated, you can see up there the same woman with the child in her lap. So you have the virgin, you have the child in the lap, and then you have the child grown up coming as the Messiah. And what's the first thing he comes into contact with? The serpent who's trying to take the crown. So you can see all the tie together. And this is kind of interesting as well, because remember we spent time talking about that amazing sign that's coming in 2017 in the fall all. It just happens to be this constellation which fits Revelation 12:1. It said, you remember the woman in Revelation 12:1? She had the seven-headed dragon, which was trying to eat her child. She had a crown on her head of 12 stars. She was clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet. Remember in the sign we talked about when it all happens, the moon is actually going to come under the feet of Virgo. There's going to be 3 planets that line up there with the stars in Leo above her head, forming the 12 stars. We talked all about that. That's going to come to its completion in 2017, and that is basically the same sign from which we had the Star of Bethlehem all the way back when Jesus was born. So it's almost like it's gone full circle, and we've got this very similar sign, except for this will be the only time when the crown will be upon her head. And it's coming. It's all coming together. And one more thing here. What about here's the scales right under her feet, the judgment, right? We're speaking about the people sitting upon the throne. They're going to be the judge, in charge of the judgment during the millennium. And what does Jesus refer his bride to? He speaks about virgins, right? Remember, there's the 5 foolish virgins and the 5 wise virgins. He comes, he gets the virgin. Some go into heaven, some were not ready. Remember? And so it all seems to fit here.